Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another video. This weekend is the release weekend of Draft Box 6. It just came out yesterday. So in today's video, we're talking about 10 common cards you should definitely pick up from the set. Really cheap pickups here that are going to add to your arsenal. The majority of them are commons. I think like maybe 2 or 3 of them are uncommons. So all really easy to pick up, guys. If you are new here, definitely do subscribe. Hit that bell so you don't miss a video. We just hit 6.5k subscribers, guys. So amazing. I can't believe it. Thank you guys so much. We're trying to get to 10,000 so we can run a huge giveaway, so definitely do subscribe. And if you want to help the channel out, there are a lot of links down in the description below that will let you do so. Particularly today, if you want to buy any of the cards you see in today's video, use my link in the description to TCG Player. It really does help out a lot, guys. I do appreciate each and every one of you guys that does that for the channel. That being said, let's just get started. So the first card I want to talk to you guys about today is Sun Goten Changing History. So if you guys are new to the game, maybe like the last set and a half, you may not know about Turles, the Unstoppable Ghost Warrior. That card is currently on the Dragon Ball Super ban list. It was just incredibly OP. So that card basically was a 3-drop 10k dual attacker. You could put 3 of your black battle cards to the bottom of your deck to play it, and then you could pitch a card to give it 5k power for the turn. This card is pretty similar. It's 3-drop 15k Overwhelm, activate battle once per turn, discard a card, switch this card to active mode. So some similar stuff there, but a few differences. So Turles, for instance, would stick around, as where if your opponent couldn't remove it or attack into it or KO it, whatever the case was, they would basically get that dual attacker to stick around as long as they could, right? This card comes in once. It does get rid of your whole drop area, unlike Turles being a selective drop kind of removal. But this card is still very good. It seems like they wanted to print a less powerful version of Turles, but still make its strategy still playable in the game, where you have like a free dual attacker that synergizes with discard cards, pretty much like Beerus Godly Majesty. But yeah, they wanted to keep that kind of aggressive free play around, but this is definitely a lot more balanced because it doesn't stick around as long as your opponent can't remove it. It's basically a 1-turn usage, but still incredibly powerful. So I'm going to recommend you pick up a playset of this card. It's pretty much playable in any deck, considering it's an overwhelm card and doesn't really require any specific energy to use. But this is going to be great in black aggro decks. Think like Vegex, think like Black Boo, where you're going to be already playing Beerus Godly Majesty, and think about Vegex. Those are some decks that this card is going to have a lot of playability in. I'm sure it'll have plenty of playability in other decks as well. So let me know in the comments below if you have a deck that you're using this card in and it's kind of just working out really well. Let me know down in the comments. But anyways, we'll move on. So next up, we have Wings, the Gargantuan Warrior. So this is a 2-drop counterplay, but pretty much the interruptions in the auto. If your leader card is yellow or a Slug's Army card, when this card is played, shoot up to one of your opponent's battle cards or unison cards and switch it to rest mode. So you might be thinking this is like a 2-drop Crusher Ball. Why would I want to pick this card up? The really cool thing there for me is that it's a battle card that rests unisons. There are a lot of decks that use their unison to kind of end the game. Think about like Blue Vegito, think about Vegex with that dual attack double strike 25k, right? So having this as a counterplay, you can counterplay this in response to anything, any random battle card being played or the unison being played. And then you have the option to rest a problematic battle card or a problematic unison. So I think the flexibility of this card, it won't see play in every yellow deck, that's for sure, but I think the flexibility of this card definitely makes it worth picking up. And being like whatever it probably is, a 20-cent card, picking that up for less than $1, I think it's just a card worth having in your back pocket when they're, especially in the future, if there is like a more unison driven meta where unisons are just ending the game left and right. Now I would say it's a moderate strategy. There is definitely a few decks that do it, but let's just say in the future there are a ton of strategies that do it, that rely on their unison to end the game. You're going to want this card in your back pocket, so definitely pick it up. Next up, we have Wrath of the Dragon. We have a 2-drop counterplay. If your leader is green, if the battle card being played is an energy cost of 2 or less, it's placed in the owner's drop area. Instead of being played, then choose 1 card in your opponent's hand and discard it. So comparing to like other green 2-drop counterplays that are extra cards, we're looking at like Preemptive Strike, right? That's like the main one where that stops the play of a 4 or less. This only stops the play of a 2 or less, but that's actually kind of relevant, especially against things like Topo and even against like Blue Baby, looking at Son Gohan Baby's minion. So this is relevant for that if you're playing green. Think maybe even like Vegeta Bobbity. If you're playing Vegeta Bobbity aggro, this could be a good card in that deck. And the cool thing about this is it does only hit 2 or less, but it also pitches a card out of your opponent's hand. So you're taxing them even more. And the point is, it is a relevant counterplay with relevant text, right? So you could, for instance, play the Dodoria 1-drop brimming with power that also stops things like Topo and Baby Gohan's minion against things like Baby. but this has the added ability of the discard. It does cost 1 more energy, so you are gonna have to kind of weigh those pros and cons when deciding to use this card, but I think there is some merit to it. I think it's a common card worth picking up, so I wanted to share it with you guys. Next up, we have Pirate Guard Kabira. We have a 2-drop counterplay. Play this card. If the battle card being played has an energy cost of 3 or less, it's returned to the owner's hand instead of being played. Auto, when this card's KO'd, play a chill token with 10,000 power. Honestly, that doesn't really matter. I mean, you get a free body when it dies, but it's unfortunate you can't even combo with it. But I think the counterplay there is pretty good. Letting blue have a card that bounces 3 or lesses, and, you know, instead of playing them, that again hits things like Topo, hits Gohan Baby's minion against Baby, just any of those like floodgatey, annoying, low cost cards. This is going to be really, really good against. There's also a Frieza from a few sets ago, I think, that does the same thing. I don't know if it's a 2 or less or a 3 or less, but it's in the same realm. It doesn't have the added ability of doing something when it's KO'd. Not that this one is incredibly relevant, but it's a card I would have in your back pocket if you're playing a blue, maybe mid-range or aggressive deck that you just want to be able to stop those Topos. You want to maybe save your Trunks Godsling technique for another thing during that turn, right? So let's say you attack, they Topo, you could use this, and then your Godsling technique Trunks is still free to counterplay one of their counterplays during that turn, or something else they may use to interrupt you in the form of a battle card, right? So in my opinion, this card is probably worth picking up for that reason. Next up, we have Napa, Promising Youth. This is like a pair. You got to pick this card up, and you got to pick up the Napa 20k Blue Adolescence. So this guy is a 4-drop double striker. EX evolves for 1 blue over that Napa Adolescence. You can evolve him by taking a Napa from your energy, so that makes him essentially a 1-drop. It does take away an energy, but there are a lot of decks now that basically add energy to their pool to do certain things. And then auto, once per turn when this card attacks, activate the skill at the end of your turn, switch up to 1 of your blue energy to active mode. So why do I really like this? Well, for one, I think it's going to be pretty good in skillless. I think there's going to be certain builds of Bonds of Friendship Goku skillless that I think are going to be able to use this card very, very well, because there are a lot of ways to cheat out the Napa Adolescence. And besides that, he's a 1-drop 20k double striker, so I think he's really good for cheap aggression. The fact that once he attacks, he untaps a blue energy allows you to be defensive as well. For me, in the common slot, this card does a lot of things. Once again, cheap aggression, allowing you to get energy back. You can put him into play very, very easily, either through cheating out the Napa or charging through your energy. I think that this is definitely a card worth picking up, so pick this up, and make sure you also pick up the Napa with the mustache and the hair. That's the adolescent ones, okay? So make sure you guys pick that up. Next up, we have Drum, Demon Clan Warrior. This is more so talking about like a slew of cards. We have the Drum, the Cylinder, and all the other ones. They basically have the same effect. If your leader card's red and you choose a card in your hand to discard it, when your opponent takes a damage from a skill on one of your battle cards or unison cards, you play this card from your hand. So the ones that I think are most important are this one, and there's a critical one as well. There's also a barrier and a blocker. I don't necessarily think those ones are so important to pick up, but this one being the double strike and the crit, I would actually recommend picking them up. And again, you won't play them in every single deck, but there's a lot of burn support coming out in Draft Box 6, so I think this is definitely a good card. Again, it is a free play. That's always very powerful. They did balance it very, very well by adding a discard cost, but I think you're gonna want these cards in your back pocket if it happens that your deck kind of synergizes with these free aggressors. Next up, Strength Through Survival. I think this is a pretty cool extra card. 1-drop activate main. If your leader card is red, draw 1, then choose one of your red cards, and your opponent can't activate blocker in response to that card's attack for the turn. Bulma is a very, very prevalent deck right now, and there are a few cards in the draft box that kind of get around blockers, so I think this is a pretty generic one you're going to want to pick up. You know, let's just say your boss monster is trying to go for game. If you're up against Bulma or some other deck playing blockers, maybe even Sin Shenron, you're going to want to have this card in your back pocket in order to get around that and go for game. King Piccolo, Yearning for Youth. I think this is a 1-drop that does a ton of things. Basically, when you play it, you draw 1, and then on turn 2, you can pay 2 reds. If your leader is red, this card gets plus 11,000 power and crit, and if your opponent's life's at 5 or more, deal 1 damage to them. Again, for a 1-drop, I think it does a ton of stuff. Just pick it up. It's a common, very, very good card to have, especially if your deck doesn't have a true turn 2 play. Trunks Changing History, 4-drop 20k, Overwhelm 4 for 2 energy. When this card's played using Overwhelm, play up to 1 black skillless battle card with energy cost of 3 or less from your deck or warp, then shuffle your deck if you look through it. So this is very similar to Dimension Sport Trunks from several sets ago. This one basically, though, plays a 30k out instead of a 20k. So you get a beefier battle card there. What's really cool, too, is you get the battle card from your warp if you need to. So let's say, you know, your skillless somehow got into your hand. You had to get rid of it. If it was in your drop area, then you overwhelmed it away. It's still playable off this card. So this is a really good card for some aggression. The 30k sticks around afterwards. In my opinion, definitely another card you're going to want to have. And then Chi-Chi, Melee, Matriarch. This is basically, you know, in line with the Mai that we saw in red. That was the first card of this type that we saw. Basically, pick the one up for your color, because as much as I wish Bandai didn't print these cards, I don't really like these floodgate type of cards. It's gonna be a card you're gonna want to have just in case like Baby runs really rampant. I don't think it hurts other blue decks as much, because other blue decks have like Senzu Bean and other cards to untap during the battle step. But you know, against Baby in particular and against Dimension Magic, this card is definitely quite strong. So guys, it's gonna wrap up today's video for the 10 cards you should pick up from Draft Box 6. I do want to know in the comments below if you guys have any other recommendations for pickups. That could be rares, commons, SRs, whatever you guys recommend. Just drop them down below so everyone can see them. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time.